Hello and welcome to this week's Forex Outlook here at xm.com. My name is your investment analyst and I'm here with our chief economist, Michalis Forendiadis. So Michalis, the dollar is looking set for its third straight weekly gain versus a basket of currencies. Can you talk to us about that as well as about other developments throughout the week?
Yes, the dollar managed to rise strongly this week as well. It has been rising sharply since mid-April because we're talking about a significant move. What was perhaps interesting was that the yen managed to match the dollar's gains this week. I think this was because there was also a little risk of sentiment and some jitters about trade war, some nervousness about that, with stocks, particularly in the US, losing a little bit of ground this week. But the dollar has been helped by the Federal Reserve, although some analysts said that the Federal Reserve said that the Fed might let inflation rise above its 2% target without reacting aggressively to such a possibility. Still, we have a Fed that is fairly optimistic about the US economy and that is set to increase interest rates some more. It will be interesting, of course, to check what the US employment report, which is coming out in a few hours, will have to show about the US economy. Now, on the other hand, we had the sterling and the euro performing pretty badly, particularly sterling, because very few people are expecting anything from the Bank of England next week. I know you will be talking about that in a second, Andreas. We had some weak PMIs, particularly from services and manufacturing, although construction PMI was strong. So this weighed on sterling, as well as some uncertainty and some developments about Brexit. And with respect to the euro, we had some weak inflation numbers. So they confirmed more or less, they didn't cause such a huge reaction in the euro, but they more or less confirmed the recent spate of weak data we have been seeing about the euro and the selling it has received, because maybe the ECB is not going to be in such a hurry to stop asset purchases or its quantitative easing program and to raise interest rates. So I think this more or less sums the week for the majors. Also, the Kiwi and the Aussie were down against the dollar. What do we have to look for next week, Andreas? What are going to be the key points based on the themes we have talked about so far? What are investors going to look at?
Starting with the US, Michalis, on Thursday we'll see the release of CPI figures. This is not the Fed's preferred inflation measure, but still will be closely watched by investors. It's expected to rise, specifically to touch 2.5%, its highest since February last year. One day before, we'll have PPI numbers out of the US, while on Friday, the University of Michigan's preliminary survey on consumer sentiment for May will be made public as well. Now, remaining within North America, Canada on Friday will see the release of its own employment report for April. And with that, should I continue to Europe, Michalis?
Yes, please.
Well, in Europe, the UK is going to be on center stage, specifically the BoE, you made a reference before. It is not expected to proceed with a rate hike. The probabilities for such an outcome have tumbled in recent weeks. In early April, they were as high as 90%. Now they've fallen to single digits, today standing at 9%.
And with those expectations, the pound has also fallen, it seems.
Of course, yeah. It fell, I mean, its high earlier in April was, or a few weeks ago, it was around 143. Now it's at 135, so an 8 cent difference. And of course, the expectations fell on the back of softer data, but also some comments by the BoE governor, Mark Carney. Also on the same day, that is on Thursday, the UK will see the release of industrial and manufacturing output data. And moving over to Asia, Michalis, on Wednesday, China will be on the receiving end of trade data. These are maybe gathering more attention in light of the trade dispute and ongoing negotiations with the US. while on Thursday, CPI and PPI figures out of the world's second largest economy will be made public as well. Continuing with Japan, on Monday, the BoJ minutes pertaining to the March meeting will be made public, while on Thursday, the summary of opinions that's the one has to do with the April meeting will be released, while on Tuesday, household spending numbers will be made public as well out of the same country. And as regards the second central bank meeting that will be monitored next week, that's going to be by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. It is not expected to proceed with a change in rates. A rather neutral stance is expected. And I should say that this is going to be the first meeting for the bank's new governor, Andrea Noor, and under the new mandate as well that includes employment besides inflation targeting. But I should say that a dovish tilt might take place, though, given that inflation has been falling. And should that be the case, then we can expect further losses for the QE, which, as you earlier said, was under pressure this week. It touched a 4-month low versus the US dollar. And also, whilst I'm on the QE, I should say about Australia as well. The Aussie touched an 11-month low this week versus its US counterpart. And whilst on that, Australia next week will see the release of retail sales data on Tuesday.
So I think it's a very interesting point for markets because, as you mentioned and we have said, the dollar is making highs against many currencies. So the trend seems to be for a stronger dollar, and it will be interesting how things like the Bank of England meeting, US inflation, the trade dispute, and of course the RBNZ meeting, I think the highlights of next week, how they will play out and whether this trend is going to continue, plus whether this strength in the yen, if the yen manages to rebound and keep up with the dollar, or whether this was a more temporary move and we will get back to normal, more or less. Well, thank you very much, Andreas, for your input. Thank you everyone for watching and have a great day.